move over Alabama because there is a new college football Goliath in town. Chip, Georgia repeated as national champions. Not in the way I think anyone expected. 65-7 against TCU. They are the first team to repeat in the college football playoff era and the first team to repeat in general since Alabama in 2011 and 2012.
Yeah.
But instead of doing a typical season recap, our Georgia beat writer Chip Towers and I, for our final episode of the season for Know Your Dawgs, besides some parade coverage, so stay tuned for that, we decided to do season superlatives, not senior superlatives. It's a little bit different. We're going to include everybody.
That's right.
Season superlatives.
There are some sophomores and juniors and freshmen in here.
There's everybody. There's everybody. So this is going to be a fun episode of Know Your Dawgs. Okay, let's start. Let's just get started.
All right.
Breakout star of the season. You go first.
Yeah, it's going to be real interesting going through this because we didn't agree on a lot, but there's a lot of different players.
By the way, these seats, y'all, we're sliding around. It's the end of the college football playoff time here in LA. These are the stools that are left for us. They're a little bit slidey. Okay.
Great balance. Breakout star. I'm going to go with Javon Bullard. I mean, who of us at the beginning of the season really knew that much about Javon Bullard? In fact, Georgia didn't know who they were going to start at the star position at all. Javon Bullard in this last game right here, 2 interceptions, fumble recovery, popped his shoulder out of socket again. Incredible performance by the sophomore from Milledgeville.
I'm going to talk about Jamon Dumas-Johnson, although Javon Bullard is a very, very good pick.
JDJ.
JDJ, linebacker for Georgia, flew around everywhere. I think we really got to see his combination of speed and strength this season. And we just named 2 guys who are coming back for Georgia. So it is kind of crazy. This is a deceptively young to medium-aged team for this Georgia Bulldogs squad. It just doesn't feel like it because Stetson Bennett's a little older. All right, most pivotal moment of the season. I'll go first on this one. Everyone picks against Georgia, basically, to lose to Tennessee. Georgia responds by kicking Tennessee's butt and sacking Hendon Hooker 6 times. That could have been even worse of a final score, but they kind of took the air out of the ball in the second half.
I like your call there. I'm going to go with the fourth quarter of the Missouri game because that was pretty incredible to me when you think about it retrospectively that, Georgia is losing by 2 touchdowns or by 10 points heading into the fourth quarter and comes back with 14 points, the first of the Stetson Bennett comebacks this season. And so I'll go with the fourth quarter of Missouri, a cold night in Columbia.
It's very, very chilly. Best win of the season.
Best win of the season.
There might be a little recency bias with this one, but yeah, best win of the season.
Well, I'm going to go with the Tennessee game because as you talked about, it was amazing how Tennessee beats Alabama the week before, and they were the country was in love with Tennessee. A little bit of Georgia fatigue, I think, nationally at this point.
And everybody just wanted Tennessee to be good because you just love those stories.
That's
you
right.
want to see people. You want to see teams take off.
And then what a dominating, don't let the final score fool you.
Yeah.
What was it, 24-13, I think it was. Georgia, total domination in that game.
Okay, my best win of the season, this is for sure recency bias. I guess I should speak for myself. The 42-41 win against Ohio State. What does it say about Georgia that you are so good that you can have a pretty terrible third quarter and come back and win against Ohio State the way Georgia did? I think if you're Ohio State watching the national championship, you're probably like, wait, we were number 4? What on earth?
Yes.
Okay, unsung hero of the Georgia season. I am going to go Kearis Jackson.
Love KJ.
He might not have had the most, receiving yards. He might not have the most impressive stats. But, let's go back to that Ohio State game. Kearis Jackson was one of those key guys that Stetson Bennett was finding in the fourth quarter to come back and get that win.
35-yard reception. That was a good one. I thought about this one a little bit, but I like Nazir Stackhouse on this.
That's a good pick.
Stackhouse is a guy that really nobody talks about all that much, but he started almost every game at the nose guard position. He was the guy holding the fort while Jalen Carter was out for that long time, and he has a great TikTok page, a great TikTok follow. Is Nazir Stackhouse.
Chip's really big on TikTok.
That's follow Nas.
Cutting edge on TikTok. Okay, biggest surprise of the season. Y'all remember I just said Georgia sacked Hendon Hooker 6 times in one game against Tennessee. Do you guys know how many sacks Georgia gave up all season long? Stetson Bennett's jersey stayed clean. 9 sacks all season long in 15 games. That is nuts. That's the biggest surprise of the season for me.
Yeah, not being the greatest at math, I'd say that was less than 1 a game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't give you the exact fraction. It's less than 1.
You know, I kind of struggle with this one a little bit, but you know, I'm going to go with Lab McConkey because I just, I saw him last year and it's like, wow, the kid from Northwest Georgia is pretty good, but you know, it's went from like, pretty good overachieving. It's like, wow, he's like a matchup problem for people. I mean, they're having to scheme around him, especially in contacts with Georgia's tight ends and running backs. Unbelievable. And man, he was tough and played hurt down the stretch. Here to the end, scored again in the national championship game. Lab McConkey, you're the man.
He's small. He's a little bit smaller, but he's excellent.
He is excellent
for
in
Georgia.
all regards.
Absolutely. Okay. Best quote of the season. You go first.
Oh, me first
Yeah.
on this one? Oh, okay.
You want me to go first?
No.
It's up to you.
It's just funny because
I got it ready on my phone.
Well, I'm proud of mine, so I.
You should be, because I know what you're saying, because we might have rehearsed this.
Yes, my best one is the best quote of the year, not mine, but came from Kirby
Chip's
Smart
most
last
quotable
night.
moment.
Kirby Smart was asked in the post-game press conference. Him and Stetson Bennett, left the championship podium and the confetti and everything, embraced arm in arm, and they were clearly talking. He was right in his ear the whole time walking out. Somebody asked him, "Yeah, Coach, what were you talking to Stetson about when he came over there?" And Kirby just grinned and he said, "Probably tell him to no old pappy tonight." And which is hilarious because Stetson didn't show up for the post game for the champions press conference.
I wonder why.
Yeah, and nobody was sure why or exactly where he was. So I'm not sure that the 25-year-old Stetson Bennett heeded his coach's advice.
The studious and responsible Brock Bowers took his place at the press conference,
That's right.
and pinch hit like a champ.
Yes.
Okay, the best quote of the season for me, my best quote of the season.
Yes.
Stetson Bennett, after Georgia wins the national championship, was asked kind of about the significance of the moment. And Stetson Bennett just gives some accidentally, or he's just so even-keeled about it, but he gives some badass quotes sometimes. And this is one of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's special. It seems like for the past 3 or 4 months we've been looking, see if somebody could beat us, and we just, ran out of games. Nobody could.
That is just poetry, and also accurate. Okay, craziest play of the season. Mine is going to be in that Ohio State game. A lot of mine are from the Ohio State game because it was just nuts. Stetson Bennett sparking the comeback, hitting Ryon Smith, a guy we haven't seen too much from, but probably the fastest guy in college football. Definitely the fastest guy for Georgia.
Arguably, for sure.
On that 76-yard bomb, kind of juking a DB. DB falls down, and Ryon Smith just burns him. And then that's how Georgia came back.
I'm going to go back to the SEC championship game and Chris Smith picking up the blocked field goal. Remember how he stood over the ball?
Yes, and it was like everybody was like, "Is it live? Is it live? Is it live?
Yeah.
Is it going? Is it going?"
And he's like, "You know what? They're all walking off the field. I'm going."
Yeah.
And that was a huge moment early in the game. Turned the tide toward the Bulldogs.
Okay, offensive MVP and honorable mention. You go first.
Well, I'm going to go with Brock Bowers, but just because I just don't think there's anybody else like him. I mean, you could kind of say that for Darnell Washington as well, but I mean, robo tight end, not really a tight end, H-back, F-back, slot back, whatever you want to call it. He does it all. I mean, he really is, I think, the difference maker on Georgia's offense, everything around him. And I'm going to give a real strong honorable mention to Broderick Jones, the redshirt sophomore left tackle. Do you realize he did not give up a sack the entire season?
Wow. And
NFL scouts are licking their chops right now. Say bye-bye to Broderick.
So only giving up 9 sacks, Broderick Jones, a big reason why. Okay, my offensive MVP, Stetson Bennett. First guy to get to 4,000 passing yards.
Low-hanging fruit there.
I know. I've said his name a lot.
It's hard to argue that.
It's hard to argue that he doesn't deserve it. My honorable mention is Ladd McConkey, who you talked about. Now, A.D. Mitchell was hurt for the vast majority of this season. A.D. Mitchell, everyone had sky-high expectations for him this season, justifiably so.
Yeah.
Georgia needed someone to step up big as a receiver.
Yeah.
And I mean, Ladd McConkey's so versatile. He plays special teams too and does a good job with that. He had maybe a rocky moment here or there earlier in the season, but to me, that makes what he did down the stretch run so much more impressive.
That makes a lot of sense. And that whole wide receiver core having to pick up for AD is really a kind of a hidden story to this whole season. They really came through.
Absolutely. Okay. Defensive MVP and honorable mention. I'll go first on this one. Senior safety Chris Smith, my defensive MVP. I don't think this Georgia defense bounces back from losing what they lost last year if they did not have experienced veteran presence of Chris Smith.
Yeah.
Especially in that secondary.
Right.
And then honorable mention, Smile Munden. What a year for him.
Yeah, incredible player and really the prototypical linebacker of the modern day defense, trying to defend all these RPOs, a really fast guy who can both give you run defense and pass defense. Hard to argue with any of yours there.
My picks are all correct.
I'm going to go with 88 Jalen Carter. You may have heard of him. And so you're missing him. You're missing him for almost 6 games in the middle of the season.
Mm-hmm.
What a difference it made when he came back. Now there were a couple of hiccups late in the year, but you talk about sacks. I think Georgia ended up with 30-something of them, but the vast majority of those happened when Jalen Carter got back. And as an honorable mention, I would say JDJ, Jamon Dumas-Johnson, because I mean he's the guy in there in the middle, number 10, making all the calls, making the defense go. Certainly the front 7. So both of those guys.
Okay, best freshman.
Got some good choices here. I think it's pretty obvious from my standpoint.
Is it?
Yes, I do. I believe it's obvious. Malachi Starks, the freshman from Jefferson, gets in the first quarter of his first game against Oregon, gets an interception, and then played all year. You talk about one of the big reasons Georgia should be able to reload next year is because 24 is going to come back in the back of the defense after playing in 15 games, a major role in some huge games. Malachi Starks, no argument.
Not so fast. I have an argument. Defensive lineman Michael Williams, who actually ended up leading Georgia in sacks this year. Hard to argue. How can you even argue?
Number 13, the other 13.
The other 13. Okay, Mr. Congeniality. This one, I think our man behind the camera would agree with this, Ryon Horne. Because how many times have you had your camera stolen by Kenny McIntosh?
Well, not mine, but
he's stolen. How many times have we witnessed a camera being stolen? Jason Getz is saying too. Kenny is just a fun time. He was having a lot of fun. Like, just y'all remember after like that epic LSU championship with Joe Burrow, having the cigar.
Yeah.
That was Kenny McIntosh. He was with the gigantic hat that's like happening these days.
Yeah.
He was having an amazing time. Gave so much credit to Stetson Bennett. He was like, yeah, I'm not impressed. That's what I expect. I don't know. I just think he's so congenial.
Yeah, he is fantastic. I'll go with Kearis Jackson, KJ.
That's
number
a good
10.
one.
Yeah, what a leader he has been. Yeah, I had a lot of people told me that he was the best player they ever saw in high school. He was injured in his senior year, injured when he came to Georgia his first year. He stayed injured the entire time, but he continued to contribute. And at the end of it, he's an all-state good hands, All-American, and he was a spokesman for Georgia all year long. And made some big catch. You talked about it earlier. That 35-yard catch against Ohio State was huge.
Yep. Okay, the last couple ones, we're in agreement. So we're just going to talk about these guys because they just deserve their own little segment. I was torn between calling this one most likely to succeed or most likely to become a millionaire. You can go with either one because Mr. Jalen Carter is probably about to get paid.
I would like to be in Jalen Carter's family right now. Remember me out there, Jalen, as you move on to the next thing. Projected as a top 5 pick for sure. Some people are talking about 1, 2, or 3. We'll see.
But he was you can really kind of say he helped transform. I don't think it was single-handedly, but when you have Jalen Carter right there in the middle,
Yeah.
it transforms your defense.
Completely, yeah, and that's why the NFL is just so interested in him, because it does the same thing next level.
Right. Okay, most school spirit. Who other than Nolan Smith, who
Number 4.
loves the Dogs since he got injured? I will give him so much credit. He became the biggest Georgia hype man you have just ever seen in your life. Like, I mean, whenever I was down on the field before games, I would see him, gassing players up in big groups, having like a one-on-one, conversation and hug with Malachi Starks, before that Ohio State game. I mean, he loves Georgia. He always wanted to play for Georgia. Got hurt his senior year, but still was so involved in this run. Helped coach up the defense. I mean,
I was about to say he became an 11th assistant coach for Georgia. I mean, he really was in practices. He was down in the dirt with the outside linebackers the whole way.
last quick one. Most likely to host a talk show. Who other than Warren Brinson, who keeps stealing everybody's microphone? We got Kenny McIntosh stealing everybody's camera. Warren Brinson stealing everybody's microphone.
Yeah.
I mean, he just built for TV. What are we doing? We need Warren Brinson here,
Yeah, he played well last night. Actually had a shoulder injury, and I talked to him afterward, which he was very outspoken about, and he said he was fine. He wouldn't need surgery or anything, nothing serious. And Brinson coming back next year is another reason for optimism about next year.
Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this section of season superlatives for your national champion, Georgia Bulldogs. Chip, thank you so much for joining me today and all season long.
It's been great. What a fun ride, and 65-7, just like we thought.
Yeah,
great season.
It's how we all drew it up and imagined it. Thank you all for following along all season long, and don't forget about our parade coverage, because we're going to cover that